K-pop Demon Hunters has pulled in so many animators and just hasn't let go. It's inspiring a lot of artists, including my students. So a little while back, actually, we did a frame-by-frame of several sequences from Demon Hunters, and on top of having a ball, they just learned so much from it, and I knew that you would too. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to dive right into it. So here we're starting with Huntrix in the alley, panicked about fans are coming that are going to find about Rumi's voice. I think this is a great sequence to start with. There's a lot of fun stuff that happens here. So overall, I mean, I just love the sheer panic that they have between all of them on what to do, where to go, to hide, and then it just ends up in this really hilarity where they literally disappear behind her. And it goes from this very energetic pace to this very robotic, stiff, like dead walk forward. But let's get into all the details here. Like, even just this opening pose is fantastic. I love her mouth and for the face pose, the position of her arms. It portrays, oh, what do we do? I have no idea. She's just paralyzed. And then she's rocking the anime eyes with no pupils already. Extremely exaggerated face as well. Gets this really hilarious, like, quick zip over. You can see the arms following a nice arc that kind of go with the hips down. Of course, all those body mechanics are in there. And there's this great idea of, like, grabbing the hat, pulling this down on her face, as if she's trying to hide with her clothing already. And they're using this some great squash and stretch where the shape of the hat is like this, and then it squashes in and squeezes her face, her body, even to stretch. There's also a really great coordination between all of them trying to figure out what to do. So first, Rumi is here teaming up, trying to look for answers here. So she looks to the left, then she looks to the right. Quickly looks back here to the center, then over to this corner, and then back to this side. So there's a left-right flow that she has. So she goes left, right, left, and then back, and that's where we get the collision because she hasn't been watching closely enough. We really see the collision because there's 2 frames of like this contact here. Funny stretch on her eye, right? It's kind of emphasize that she's moving quick. And then, you know, the bodies follow through here. The torsos collide. This hip uses the momentum to kind of bounce off and land here. And we get some nice arm overlap here. Some really fun smears with all the panic. So the arms zip out, and they pull in really quickly. And every time they're moving really fast, so we're getting like 1 frame here, and then they're already in position, and they're using this to basically ease it in so that it appears to not hit too hard. And of course, the clothing is dragging behind anyway, so that's why we're getting all these smears here. This feels looser to her arms, feels slower than her arms. And yeah, look at this fun like smear, right? Motion blur's kind of hiding some of it, but you know, a lot of great smear shapes in there to lead the eye here as well, to get her to zip over as well. And same on the left side, so we even just get this faint hint of like that smear on that hat there to zip her behind. I love the cartooniness of like stretching her head. The hat here. Look at this frame. It got motion blur, but I bet the animation itself was clearer, that the eye multiple and then multiple hat was clearer to read. I just love the cartooniness of doing that for a couple of frames for her to zip behind. And it's of course timed so that, you know, she zips in before she does, and then they just magically disappear, save for a hand and an arm, right? They're really just hinted at back here. You could really cheat this stuff They're doing their typical move with the hat. Really snappy motion here to be like a couple frames of hands up with slight fingers to ease in and out of that, drag that, snap down, a couple frames of holding the hoodie, and then 1 frame up, ease into that shape, right? Really pops up into that shape, collapses down on her. I just love the snap there. So she's more or less doing nothing for several frames. You get the slight like pushing of her hair and stuff to kind of fold into the hoodie, and then 1 frame. This is our ease out, right? This is our ease out. It goes from here to like show that it's about to accelerate, and then boom, right down. Another frame to kind of cushion in, ease in, sync to slow down so it doesn't hit too hard. Relax and settle. So you get doink, right? You get that nice ball bounce feeling to it all. Lots of fun stuff and just this opening segment here. One higher level thing to note is maybe that they've really pulled our attention by keeping these two calmer. So she's not moving around with her body near as much as her, right? There's smear frames, she's flailing her arms, she's squeezing her hat on her head. She's more or less just turning her head around and slightly rotating her body overall. Like, it feels pretty stiff in comparison, right? So that allows our eyes to kind of bounce around and not get too distracted with feeling all the panic with all of them. Really fun. Here, now that they've hidden behind Rumi, the Saja Boys show up. And then I just love this pop in. They're, you know, just zipping right into frame. You would have missed this, you know, at full speed, but, you know, they're doing this so that, you know, they can get there so quickly. They're even just subtly, there's this drag there stretching on the sides of the hat and the face to go with those eye multiples to zip into frame very fast. Her earring is, of course, dragging as well, right? And then catches up. And you just get this few frames of settle before the hair finally flicks into place. That just makes the super fast speed feel very smooth to the eye. As smooth as it could be. And then, of course, they keep them all very stiff for the comedy of it, right? They're paralyzed by, wait, what? These guys are hot. Then after some slow-mo walking, heart eyes, bing! Abs. Ab eyes. Corn. Psh. Butter. Really great. This whole segment here is cool. Just we gone full anime here. Basically, you could, you know, the most obvious thing is you can see that the hearts just appear. You could do this with your animation too if you're just drawing that in there. It doesn't have to be as pretty perfect as this modeled textured heart. You could draw this and would still get the same effect. You could do that on top of your characters. But I love how it just pops into place, right? It's just boom, it's here. As soon as she opens her eyes, they arrive. Here as well, they just appear. And then you get that 1 frame of like it popping out and then just easing in slightly. And they're slightly staggered as well to kind of feel like pop pop, you know, as those hard eyes come out. And then they quickly snap back, right, to a more respectable size that fills the eye sockets, right? And we get a little heartbeat on there, which is just hilarity, right? Just great thinking from a storytelling perspective to make the most of this moment. Boom, boom. I think what really adds to it underneath the surface too is as how they dive into it with their head. So their heads. So here, she really is squashing down, you know, dipping her head down. Her shoulders come up to help with that squash. Her face, everything's closing here. and then she opens up into it very snappy. Right, and there's this long ease in drift up, so she really gets boing, like it kind of hits like that in that moment. Maybe this is even more noticeable here if you look at her nose. She goes down a little bit slower and then immediately pops up in like a frame or two, and then just cushion right there to really hit that shocked face pose and almost feel like she dives forward with her head as those hard eyes hit. To me, that really sells the attitude. She could have not had her head dive in there and it would have felt a lot calmer. A lot like she was less interested in these hot guys coming their way. And then how do we get more humor out of this? We just amp it up, right? We get the exposed abs peeking through, and then she just goes literally to anime face. I love this. Like, complete ridiculousness, right? Like, her real mouth disappears, her real mouth, and she goes straight to, like, anime. Her eyebrows, her mouth, her chin, all that stuff changes. Her hair even gets simplified. It feels like maybe this was like another model on top of the main. Yeah, it feels like this was like another model on top of the main model of the face. Maybe they drew these, maybe the animators drew these lines in. I know they did something similar for Spider-Verse, where they could just sketch those lines in there. But love that. I mean, she's really scrunching the face to then pop it out. And this is a really powerful overshoot because it just jumps past where it's going to rest. So it goes boing, and then it's going to bounce back here and settle here with the ab eyes. But just as clean as this is, it feels like some of this is modeled, like the eyebrows. Fantastic mouth shapes. Really great, great use of this like camera swipe to like, you know, bring this back to her. Got like the button melting. When we watch this at speed, it happens pretty quick. We get enough frames of it to really, I get the idea that this button is melting and turns into butter in her eyes, right? Melting butter in her eyes. But it's a great swipe here that just, like, we go from camera doing a big rotation right into her eye. And it's literally just one frame of button butter. There's a nice kind of stretch on that before it squashes out on impact. She's got really hilarious mouth shape of like biting her own lip. The butter sliding down her eyes. This is really funny. This is just like using the texture to overheat her. And then, of course, you get popcorn. After corn on the cob heats up. She loses it. And you get this extra funny cut then of having the shades on, meme style, eating popcorn. This is so amazing. You know, they're so hot. I love the super exaggerated face. Like, in any other movie, or most other movies, you know, this would be like, what did you do? The character's face looks really weird. But in this movie, everything's so exaggerated, or we just go with these funny faces. You know, it just makes us laugh even more, because that's what the style of this movie is all about. Very Sony. Here's this hand out segment where she's like, oh, he's gonna lift me up. Wait, what? You watch yourself. Some great time taken here to let the characters kind of eyes connect and letting them breathe, to have a thinking moment here. Like, she doesn't immediately just get shocked. She's like, wait, what is he doing? And you can see these little movements in her eye. Like, look how small that is. Right? That little shift there. It's like my brain's thinking, trying to process what's going on. She's looking at what's happening, trying to gauge everything. And she's very like skeptical here. Like, wait, he hasn't helped me up yet. What's gonna happen? Something not good. Right. Love this reaction, just so on point. It's really exaggerated face. My favorite bit though is here how she is helped up. Her team has really got her back. I love how like diabolical she looks with her eyebrows. Her lip corners are like daggers, as are her like her eyebrow shape, her eye shape, and then she's got no pupils to make her even more like demon mode, which is funny for Huntrix. But I especially like how Rumi has this reaction to have that feel powerful. She goes down into, like, if you watch her nose, she goes down into this squash here for several frames. And then just after we get several frames of that, of those arms coming out, really holding that squash, she just skyrockets into this shout to really feel that. And we ease into that as the head catches up, finishes rotating. And then she comes down finishing that sentence. So it really just drives home the energetic part of that dialogue there. Watch yourself! Right there in the yell. And for the character acting side of it, I love that her eyes almost feel like crossed, and then we get this eye dart down in a way after she like looks in his direction and then back over. You can tell that doesn't feel like she really insulted him enough, right? And then she realizes that she got too emotionally upset about it as well, especially when she's like, ugh, after the fact. I thought that was a great character moment where somebody's gotten the best of you and you feel like, you know, you really wish that you didn't overreact too much. This feels like she's getting judgy here. She's judgy maybe about how she's is for how she responded against herself, and then judgy about him, right? And all the while, they're just like frozen, stuck in this rage, right? So let you focus on Rumi, let you pay attention to her. And they're really framing her, you know? She's kind of leaning in as well, so they kind of pushing your attention to be here. Here we have this puking, like, hilarity. I just really like how they're all puking in a different way. Like, the animator really had to think about how they're gonna puke, and I think this is maybe the most obvious one. There's this like anticipation back, puffing up of the puke face, and like trying to hold it in, right? This is bigger anticipation, and then let it out quick, right? Like pop into it basically, fast out, and then just ease in there into that pose for that pla. So she does it that way. Hers is more just like the face popping open and then her mouth dropping down as she brings up the drink, right? Like the fruit pack or whatever it is, and then she drops her head down afterwards for a bit of a doink like this, like boing, like. So we feel that in the head, and then the shoulders and the back kind of react, and that's all before she does the big pop up here that she just holds. Really funny, I think. The tongue out, different face, you know. Kind of wish that she eased in with the head a little bit. Felt a bit stiff, but it hits really strong. Holds that very strongly. And she's like, no. It's like this. And we get what we feel here is, rather than like the up down stuff here, or even here, we're getting like this side to side where she's like forward and then back and then forward. So she really suddenly lurches forward, dragging her head, and then it follows through just subtly. You almost feel like the extension of the head from the neck there. And then she drops down with some more of that. So there's, again, the drag in the head, the neck, right here. And then it follows through slightly for her final. Before they all go in unison, right? And they all have their own ways of doing this. So I love seeing her shoulders really drop down as her neck extends. Some really opposing shapes there. And she's going up as she's coming down, and then she's kind of hanging in the middle, which is really an interesting way to feel like they're all connected but not identical. You know, it flows really well. The slight opening up of the hand and legs there to keep her pose a little more active. This is really funny. This is a really funny face to see here in the middle. Like it's all like lopsided with the tongue over here. Well, that's all symmetrical. Love this eye shape here. We're just getting a hint of the iris and pupils there. Hilarious. So they just pop in this nice rhythm where they and I think there's a certain comedy to that. There's a certain feels nice appeal to that, right? And then we're doing some fun cartoony hoodie stuff. You know, she's, you know, they feel like they're an entourage. They feel like they're, you know, like an Ocean's 11 team or something like that. She's popping her glasses up. She's bringing her cap down. I think there's a nice flow to that motion. And then at the same time, she's pulling her hoodie up, right? And we're not necessarily going to see that because we don't really even see her hand grab it. It's more of like a surprise in shape that this happens, right? That she's holding up here with her hand and then is letting go. We've got several frames of that. And I love how the hood goes first, the attention to detail here, and the hand hangs back a second before it opens. It's building lead and follow into this with like using 2s and 1s, breaking it up that way. So again, they're all frozen, except for this thing that they want you to focus on that's happening at like this wild speed. It pushes down on her head a little bit. A hoodie isn't very heavy, but it's the speed of this that's again pulling our attention, and they want us to feel that impact on her. And then this very snappy hand grab for the hoodie strings from her. She's been watching the whole thing. You see her eye direction has been zeroed in on her the whole time, as opposed to these two looking out at the K-pop guys. And she just gets a little bit of an ease out before the big stretch. And then we get several frames of her grabbing this. I love too how they simplified the grab. Again, juniors very frequently overcomplicate this, where they would go to grab this and they would show like every frame coming up, all this detail of it slowly pulling into her hand and the hand grabbing around it. Or you would just go 1 frame, 2 frame. It's on, right? I love that from a parenting headache and stuff, like just skipping all of that, right? Anyway, and also just it feels better with the animation just to get right to the point. And we get several frames of the tension building there, where this is just the hoodie strings in her fist. And that's all because they want us to see, here's our ease out with the hoodie slowly tightening. What's about to happen? What a pose. Right. You could do this with your rig. Even if your rig isn't built, it's probably not built, you know, the free rigs that are out there to have balloon eyeballs. But you could just create a sphere and plop them there that's white, put those lines on there, maybe even make a small black sphere there, and then boom, you've got it. You don't need those eyes to really do anything. They just need to follow along so it would work, right? And then you've sold this really ridiculous idea. And then she falls with a beautiful arc from the smearing eyeballs. You can only say this in animation, guys. Don't say this in public. Probably everyone will be confused. You get this 1 frame pull though, her arm snapping back into that squash, and she just kind of holds back here. She didn't even know what was happening. They both take a moment to realize. Her eyes go wide first. She starts to go down before she goes up into this reaction. So again, they're doing kind of the same thing, but they're slightly different. getting there at different times, and that just keeps everything feeling nice. Pretty neat. Here is a fun dance, boy band dance. Like, you could very easily, if you've got a feature reel, even if you're a game animator, you could put on dances. Depending on the game, there's probably, most of the games that are out there, they have an emote dance for the characters that are in the game. This would just showcase your skills in being able to do something like that. And I think animating a dance like this on twos is very much in your favor, right? You don't have to worry about all the overlap of the spine being just right on ones, right? You just kind of snap into these poses, and they've got the natural like overlapping action of the dance moves, right? You go and get the choreography for a dance like this, and you've got this pose, and you know that you got to go over here and snap into that. So then it just becomes a question of putting in a few of those breakdowns and eases in there. And then you've got a very snappy dance, right? So I think this is pretty straightforward. You know, outside of being handed the choreography for this, for like a little sequence like this, is breaking up these guys and managing all the characters to do the same thing. I'd probably start by copying from one character the same dance to all of them when they're doing the same thing, and then slightly vary it there. You can see that you know, a lot of it is striking the pose and then just easing in. Like here, that spine is kind of going this way. The shoulders continue to come up and ease into that extreme. Maybe there's a bit of the hair flow for swoon and overlap. And then of course, love her moment here with the shoulder shrugging. It's a little pantomime between them. She says something like, it is actually pretty catchy. This unspoken story that we all can relate to. We've all been jamming to a song that somebody else doesn't like, and then they scold us for it, and we subdued ourselves, or we seen someone else go through that, right? We've done that to them, right? So the fact that she's like jamming to this, and it's basically against everything they stand for, to be anything in support of demons, right? It's pretty good. So the way that she's really getting this dance to sell is her shoulders lead that action, and then her body's just rising up. There's not a lot going on in terms of rotation in her arms, in her legs, hips going many places other than up and down. It's just her shoulders are coming up, and then you're kind of getting the facial expression going along with that attitude. She's more or less holding that face for most of this until she's had to react to her. Right? This is another great example here where Rumi is turning to notice her, because at first she's just paying attention to the guy. She doesn't pick up on it, right? And I love that she's so focused, she doesn't notice Rumi at first either, right? She just continues in her dance. But if you think about this logically, she can't actually see her. Her hoodie's like in front of her eyes. So this is another thing that juniors will overthink with eye direction. For us, it just needs to make sense. We just need to know that she's looking this way and it feels like she's looking at her. And we get it. Like, and those eyes aren't perfectly tracking either. They're not like up here and then kind of following her down either. But we get it. Because there's enough time for her being still with all this motion for us to just feel that this is still looking at her. And she's got that time to think it over. She looks at her, stays happy first, then goes to, wait, what? Has this extra long pause as she comes up where it's dawning on her, where her brain is thinking, right? She doesn't instantly know what Rumi's thinking about her. And then chills out. And I love the wacky eyes. It's just, you know, it's just for those 2 frames. But those 2 frames of wacky eyes give us a bit of a scared face feeling, like she feels embarrassed. And then we get that long pause, and then they get the little dance in there. That's what sells this to me, you know. There's no reason why any of you couldn't make a pantomime like that for your own reels. After you're getting comfortable with body mechanics, you could do something like this. A lot of it's just thinking of who your character is and what the situation's gonna be. They get this long pause, she says something they don't really like, And then for that aggressiveness, there's this long staring hold as they're processing it. And then they just get this one frame, like, fast out. Right? Fast out into this extreme really ease in there. She gets taller, right, to show their aggressiveness. Very simple. Very simple. Totally sells the idea. And they just go even bigger, right, as she talks, right? Here we're switching gears into some fighting stuff, by the way. More fighty stuff, action. There's so much to talk about with this sequence. I think this is my favorite sequence. It caught my attention in the, like, I really like the opening to this movie with the fighting into the concert bit, but I think this is the one that really drew me in animation-wise. This whole fight choreography, the way it was handled was, I think, very well done. We get the same kind of idea again with them as the trio team, the entourage, right? Where they pop their heads in with that rhythmic timing. And I love the kind of skulking, slowly opening the door, bringing the blades out stuff. They notice them, and we get the abs guy again, and they get hit with the corn in their eyes to popcorn again, which is pretty funny. I love the minimal movement again, and her just being like, "What is wrong with you guys?" My favorite part about this is not just doing that same gag, but how they try to like fight it off here. So they do this very fast head shake that it starts smaller and gets bigger, and then they just kind of sink down into their fight pose. And I love the little bit of easing in. The last things to kind of finish moving are those like tassels on her knives. I don't know the special term for those daggers, but you get all that, like, this like little bits just finishing movement as they sink down into their fight pose, and then they feel like they're a team again. You know, they got snapped into gear. And I love the composition here. You know, it feels very much like this. We're getting like a triangle almost toward the bottom and a triangle on the top, with her being taller, and the way the weapons are positioned, the way that she's turned, right? The way that she's turned here really opens us up to this side. The way that her staff and blade here is positioned, her whole body keeps us open there. And then she's central. They've turned her a little bit so she's not just square onto camera, which I think adds a lot more appeal. It's also how you would hold a sword and get into a fight stance. So I think that just makes this whole shot look awesome, right? When you're thinking about staging like this, staging composition, it matters, right? It presents the idea clearly. It presents it appealingly. So these are skills that are usually overlooked or underdeveloped for a lot of animators. And then you get someone's blocking, you see someone's blocking for the first time, and that stuff hasn't been thought about. Things look flat. They don't look dynamic. The composition feels bland. They kind of hang out here talking. There's the minimal amount of keep alive. There's like a little tiny bit of pixels rotation. So you guys, you know, who worry about holds, right? Remember that Sony pretty much holds characters perfectly still in most of their movies, right? And then when they do want that little bit of keep alive or drawing your attention because she's talking and then she's talking, they just add like that little bit of pixels rotation there, right? Same with her. Just give her a little bit of keep alive there. Oh, she's still here. Snap, hold again, frozen, right? Going into the fight part here, this guy's pretty cool with his body like dragging through the frame. This demon. They're almost, it feels to me like they're almost trying to use it as a way to like cover the screen in black or darken the frame so that then they can do this 180 flip, right? 180 is where you've got the camera pointing on this plane, this direction, and then you flip it the other direction. Usually it's very, very disorienting unless you're doing something to help kind of neutralize things before you move the camera. So here again, we've got that kind of a black mass of that shape leading our eye. I love where she's diving in here. I think this feels so cool. So there she is on twos, right? You can see the background moving on ones. So the camera's on ones and she's stuck in her pose, right? 2 frames, 2 frames. A lot of that is kind of the staple, is everything being on 2s through here. So we're getting some really cool poses where she's got this nice line of action through her body coming in here. She's getting this clear squash into another similar pose. Very clearly a kick anticipation, right? We can see both of the daggers, flows pretty well through there. We get the slight ease out, and then boom. Look at that foot. That foot is hitting the camera on the lens, right? Okay, so how do you do that where the camera is on 1s and the character's on 2s? You would use locators and parenting constraints to have the character move with the camera so the character doesn't get stuck in space but kind of moves as the camera moves, right? So if it's attached to the camera movement, the character will just go along. So you can kind of have the character in stepped, get stuck in that pose, and then just follow where the camera goes, right? It's an advanced thing technically, but I think it's pretty easy to set up. It just would take a lot more, I think, planning than maybe most of you are used to if you've never done that before. So in your planning, you'd be like, I'm going to move the camera this way. You'd do like a little camera layout of your scene of like, we're going to back up the camera here because she's going to dive in and do a kick. You would just think all that out in advance, and then you would know in Maya or whatever program you're using, Blender, to constrain things and have the character rig follow that camera motion. Because you run into the issue is if she doesn't move with the camera, then she literally looks frozen in the world and she'll kind of stutter, right? She'll be like, I'm here, 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 right? As opposed to smoothly moving with the camera, but being in the same pose. Hope that makes sense. Well, we get this massive kick out, right? That eases in for us and then shoots past the camera. Just love how pushed that is. We're using stretch on that leg. That leg is dislocated probably. Just looks like it's bent up a little too much for it to still be intact, but it works great for this idea, right? We get this, not only is this stretching, but those arms are fully like locked out. Her face is stretching, right? So we very clearly have squash and stretch built into those 2 poses. Very impactful. And I love how the arc on this goes like so to kind of go with her turn. Great way to lead into the next thing. Another great pose. Even though she's back to us, we can still see the some of her eyes. We can see the side of her face. Boom. And you can see too that for a lot of you who've learned body mechanics with me, you know that I talk endlessly about having the body lead, having the body involved in punches, kicks, stabs, whatever they're doing, have the body lead that action. So you can see her torso really going first. It dives in, it rotates to pull that arm forward for this punch, right? Doesn't always have to do that, but you really want to have the body involved, whether it's leading or if it's following. Look at that. 1 frame, that's impact right there. And then you get those cool effects on top of it. Again, you could draw some of that stuff and it doesn't need to be as pretty fancy with the shading and lighting as it is at Sony. Look at that beautiful pose. Right? Great flowing line of action. Here you're getting more of that arm kind of going at the same time as the body, and the body hasn't finished coming through, but that's because she's got this second strike where it follows through. Look at this, like, anticipation there. Right? Get that bounce up, down while holding this pose is very fun. She's just got that little bit of overlap this way with her spine. And mainly that ball bounce on her hip. And then here we get away from 2s. I think this is interesting. So this kick is fast. If this right? If we had 2 frames of this, 2 frames of this, 2 frames of that, it would be too slow. So it's on 1s to zip by a little bit faster. It makes her zippier too. And then 1 frame to get to there, right? Another very cool pose. So much fun, right? Look at that face on top of it. I love how this wraps up for her as well. That twirl. Something else you could overcomplicate. You might be thinking about all this fancy stuff you got to do with the wrist, the arm, and whatever, or you could just spin the dagger and no one will ever notice. You just kind of move the fingers and have it look like she's really manipulating all of that perfectly. Look how they're bending the handle on this to have this flow in like a wavy pattern as well. Right. Really flows nice, whips through like through all that. And then she's got this very fast after hanging there, very nice rhythmically, right? After hanging there, spinning that dagger, you get that very fast 1-2 frames for this dagger throw bit. And then she comes in. I'll go here to this part, which I think, Lexi, you're saying you really like the run. Anyone else really like this run?
It's perfect for my parkour shot. Exactly what we were talking about on our classes.
Just steal all the secrets. I mean, yeah, I love too that we've got all this serious action for this sequence just before this, and he's doing this very cartoony anime run where his whole body is very stiff, except for like his arms and just the up down here. It's also interesting that he's on 1s for this, and then when she comes in, it's on 2s. Maybe it's like a back to reality kind of feeling. Right? You can see how much smoother it feels in the beginning with the camera to have that, and then it gets a little more rough. She's got these are kind of 2 problems here. Her feet on the wall, not quite holding the spot, but it, you know, it works. I mean, it's kind of weird for him too. And her arc here is pretty, like, this all reads very well. It's just like when you run into 2s, I think you have these kinds of problems where she doesn't have like a perfect arc for the camera motion with her head. So it, you know, the arc isn't as clean as it could be, but it's difficult to do when you're trying to hold those poses and not really adjust anything. You're getting some of those smear lines as she lands. And look at this composition again, you know, just rocking it. So clear what's going on. He's scared, he's underneath the blade, he's framed by the blade. She's looking at him, he's looking here. It's all drawing our attention right here. We're not looking over here, we're not looking here, all right? Again, some great poses here. You might have saw it if you looked at the thumbnail. Maybe that was a spoiler, but compositionally, you know, our attention is drawn between the 2 of them. The blade points back at him, their eyes look at each other. They're both kind of leaning away from each other. So for instance, he's scared, right? So he's looking away, but his face is down towards her. So here they're pulling our attention towards the center, even though their body language is kind of leaned away. And I think it's important that they keep that lean away. Like if you were building these poses, you would want that because he's scared. You know, if you don't want to get cut by a sword, you probably would back up. You wouldn't lean into it, right? So you don't want to give away the character's emotions just to make the perfect maybe composition of them doing this. That's gonna feel more aggressive just as soon as I put those lines in there. I feel it. This is very cinematic looking. Lastly, we'll just check out this bit here. Now, this is something that was a little bit different, but in the same vein of the cartooniness. Look how, like, we got very cool poses again. I really like the almost flat color here for the background. This is reminding me of Arcane for some reason. Maybe it's just the use of simple colors to fill the space. But look at this. I mean, she's here and then she's over here, and you just got this, like, you could see the Han Moon and the smears. But it's just that smear to kind of guide us where that blade used to be. It's super fast, right? And then you got these few frames for the ease in after the fact, right? So got the hair doing its overlap thing. This is why you guys learned the ball and tail, you know, on top of helping you with spines and stuff. And then there's this part here. This is all pretty sweet, but this one particular kick always stood out to me from the first time I watched the movie because it feels so much more zippy than the rest. So she holds here in space. She just pauses gravity and momentum, and then moves forward. And in 1-2 frames, she's completely 180'd to look back at him the other way, and then it's just easing into that, right? Super cartoony. Feels like it might come from here, and then it just comes from the kick. Bam! Right? 1 frame. Hold, so we can see it. It goes slow motion, so he gets zipped away. Right? Really pushed. Bam. Push stuff. Right? Maybe those are the kinds of game cinematic shots you want to do, the kinds of feature action scenes you want to make. If they're that pushed, I dare to say that you'd be able to do this before you could do it on ones. You would be able to take on that action. So maybe if you're not that good at doing like a martial arts or a dance move on ones, you might still be capable of doing this on twos, just because you got so few poses to worry about, you know, and you don't have to connect all the body parts to have it flow if you're doing these other things. So hopefully this was all very cool to see and enlightening. Hopefully some of these things blew your mind and will make its way into your own animations. If you liked showing up for this live thing, let me know and we'll do more of these. Same with on the YouTube side. I know I got people on Zoom with me now, but if you're still enjoying it, I will be happy to keep doing more of those in the future on there as well. You have any questions for me? Anything that you want to look at from K-pop, either things that we've already seen or you want to potentially check out another sequence? Anything picking at your brain?
I thought I was gonna say the one part where she's fighting in the third sequence, she's fighting the guy in the hallway. How like you have to work within your environment, like they're in this very cramped environment, and how the guy goes from pose to pose and how it moves very smoothly from one pose to the other. That to me just really kind of stuck out to me, like kind of feeling restricted in that way that you have to work in that environment, but they still make it work pretty good. Like as he's dodging one pose then to the next in a very confined environment. Like I just saw that and I was like, that's got to be really hard to do.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think you know, a lot of this for me in the planning would be like, do I want to have my fight scene be in a tight hallway? I think it's a good thing to think about for the staging of everything, and it would, like you said, really dictates the movements. And I think like here this turn could be a lot more complicated than it is. The way that he gets out of the swipe there. The twos are helping out quite a bit to kind of pop their way around it, but yeah, it's fun stuff. And like if you did the pre-layout in advance, you would know the camera is going to do a little bit of a turn here. That's one thing I didn't call out, is that the camera overall, with all of this fast action, has been very calm. You could easily have the camera doing a lot of shake, a lot of whipping around for all this stuff. But like, for instance, as she's coming in, right, for all of these kicks and stuff, we're just getting like a slow rotation, slow panning around with that camera. And I think that's really important to keep track of all this fast action so it's readable. So like here in this hallway sequence, you did your layout in advance, you would work that stuff out, that turn, and then just know the camera's gonna back up here and you've worked out that he's gonna hop there, right? That takes away a lot of the, doing that planning work up front takes away a lot of the headache.
Lexi mentioned the train fight, and I also into it because it's like my favorite.
Oh, the train fight.
Yeah.
Here, I think I've got part of it, yeah. I just love how there's this dive of the monsters at them, and we get this slow-mo moment, and then here, you do this wonderful thing where you go from this to black frame, slice with this like squash stretch to it as she bursts into the frame, slicing and dicing with her daggers. Look at this. Creating those multiples and those smears for this, I think, gives this like a very like feeling like these daggers are like a fan that she's waving around, slicing. So it's very, very appealing. And then she just kind of rips through the color there. We don't even really clearly see what that is, but we can feel that she's slicing through this horde, right? And the camera work here with her poses, so this could be very tricky too. Like if you've never done this stuff before, this could be overwhelming to you. But you could take your time, look at these shots, study them piece by piece. I think you could logically work out how they're doing this. So the camera started with her face on, right? And then over time here, as she's done her thing, the camera's slowly been going this way, right? It's been motivated by her movement for when it moves, but then it just keeps going. So like as she jumps here, it's still going this way a little bit. The big thing that happens in this moment is we back up because they want us to see the big picture, right? She did this jump, she's taking extra space, she's going places, and she's really doing superhuman stuff here because all of her momentum and gravity says go this way, fall this way. And she's just like, nope, I'm flying. I'm going back the other way, right? But what a cool thing to follow. And then we come back around to the right after punching in for this. You have a lot of options when you're making a shot like that, right? Like you could choose to have the camera do something completely different. You could have her moves be different, which would change the camera, right? That's why the planning is so important. And then like if you've done your reference, your thumbnails to work out the poses, you've done your camera layout, a lot of the big heavy lifting is taken care of. Like I would even venture to say that this animator might have like a lot of times these shots, the layout artist would just be like, here's the camera for you. You got the storyboards to follow too. So it's like they didn't have to think about all that, maybe on the job so much. When you're doing it for your demo reel, you are the storyboard and the layout crew and everything, right? And then if you can't get things to that level, then you won't have a shot like this, or you really struggle making a shot like this. But you get this really dynamic piece because of it, and I love just how dynamic it is that we're pulling away, we're getting super close up, and we're returning back to basically where we started. And she, throughout this sequence, they go from one to the next, so you're seeing each one of them highlighted for their awesomeness. So this dagger literally throws to the next girl who is cutting through the other demon, and then she does her thing. And the last thing I was going to say about this is just that how cool would it be, because I'm always thinking about like for you guys, your demo reel pieces, how cool would it be for this to be like, this is your title for your demo reel, it's like Lexi, and then shatters, and then your animation bursts through, right? or it ends something like that because they do that as well throughout this sequence where it literally goes, when it goes to Rumi, here it goes black frame again, right? Yeah, now it's on. Now it's on, Lexi. The challenge has been laid down. I should just say that it's there for all of you guys. But I think you do that kind of stuff for your demo reel, and you get the wow factor. Not only do you have that cool shot, but then you've thought about it to cinematically lead you from the title card into every piece of animation. That's next level. There's a few demo reels that I can think of that I've seen people do that, and they got every job they wanted. Maybe at some point we'll review the best demo reels I've seen from juniors on up. That might be a cool hangout to do. The camera is switching field of view, right? Yeah. I mean, I think they're doing all kinds of... throughout the whole movie, you're doing all kinds of stuff with the camera. We're getting, like, you can look at the sequence for all kinds of stuff too. Like if you're ever going to do like an anime style run, here's a perfect proof of like how to do that. You don't really change the pose too much. You get shoulder movement up, down, a little bit of head offset to make it feel like the head is leading the charge of that run, a little bounce in those arms. But yeah, you don't need a whole lot. It's still stiff like a lot of anime can be. Yeah, okay. Anything else you guys want to look at here? Or ask me? Now is the time.
Maybe some girls' dances.
Girl dances. I think you can see how the poses are a lot like the guys dancing in terms of like what your workflow would be for it. What's cool to me in this sequence is just that you know, the two on the side are really supporting her compositionally and with the dance routine, and then she's doing something a little bit different, right, throughout this. And then this particular dance has that extra bit where she's feeling like something is off and things are dangerous between these two. So I think that's extra cool, but like dance-wise, again, I think it's the same difficulty as the guys, really. And this dance, they're kind of hitting these very straight poses for the supporting act. Love the like you're going from this very straight pose to this curvy dance one, and then just easing into it. You just like pop into that pose, just ease into it, and then shift to the other side, right? Like that one that you saw Tara do, Sophia, was like harder than this. Right? It was because they're doing all this popping and shifting to the other side, and then there's just like a little bit of a lift. Head's more or less stationary. These are the kinds of dances that are better to do than doing like Michael Jackson moonwalk or like a break dance where there's like where the person looks like they're doing inhuman things. Way cooler to just hit a couple of cool poses and like move within them a little bit to the music, and then it'll feel slick. This is just really cool, like to do this like pose and staging for like the opening of a dance, right? And this flows so nicely between them. Yeah, this flows so well to kind of like come in and then back out and down. That's why I really like this and find this appealing. Compositions, perfect. A lot of this is just those arms and those hands to get that flow, and like the torso, the hips aren't doing anything crazy, right? You're just going for those typical C shapes. And you would probably see a lot of that in the reference anyway. The head's kind of making an S at the end to counter. And they're kind of finishing a few frames after she hits her pose. This is a very Sony hand. This is a very cartoony thing to do there, to like flick that out, but that totally works as like a way to ease that in drag that hand into position. Look how close that ease is, right? Pixels there. And even this is the main part of the pose. That hits first. And then this is still settling slightly. Her hair is still settling slightly. Similar deal here. Slight change in the head while the rest of the body's frozen. Little adjustments in the jacket, torso, chest. This is a little wild with the hands through here. This is maybe a little complicated with figuring out where your arcs are going to go. But again, if you got good reference, know that you're going to hit this pose, and then you're probably going to double up on the arcs to get there, just to hit that. Some fun stuff though. Love how the camera pulls back here, and we get this other angle. We get this sense of that there's a concert, there's fans. And then the rhythm of their like wave that they're doing, how they're squashing down and then stretching back with a nice rhythm to the energy. Like you feel the energy pick up a little bit as they start, and then it kind of fades down, and then they go to the next thing, right? It just has like a natural flow into the next moves when you're having that timing and spacing change, when you're having that energy change from faster to slower or slower to faster, and then into the next thing. So it's not all the same beat all the time. I love looking at these K-pop Demon Hunter sequences. They inspire me a lot to get in and, make some cartoony, snappy goodness. Something along those lines. How about you? Were you inspired? You feel energized to animate something? I think you have two options now. You can just let that energy kind of fizzle over the next few days, or you could use it. You could take action on it. So, what's one new thing that you just discovered from this, or one new thing that you got an idea about from looking at this frame by frame, you can put into your next animation? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your plans.